All through the party, the guest looked unusually serious. His face became more gloomy as the evening progressed. As strange as it seems, the Baron's jokes seemed to make him even more melancholy. At times, he was lost in thought, and at times there was a worried expression on his face that indicated an anxious mind. His conversations with the bride became more and more serious and mysterious. Her happy face began to lose its look of joy and assumed a troubled expression as her gentle body began to shake with fear. All these changes were seen by everyone in the great hall. Their joy and good spirits were spoiled by the unusual melancholy of the bridegroom. Whispers and looks were exchanged, accompanied by puzzled shakes of the head. The singing and the laughter grew less and frequent, and there were dull pauses in the conversation. Finally, all cheerful talk stopped, and the conversation turned to wild tales of magic and stories of ghosts. One melancholy story followed another, each one even gloomier than the last. The Baron nearly caused several ladies to have fits when he told the frightening story of the beautiful Leonora who was carried away by the goblin horseman. It is a horrible story, although it has since been written as excellent poetry. It is read and probably believed by people all through Germany. The bridegroom listened to the tale of Leonora with particular attention. He watched the Baron closely. As the story came to an end, he began to rise gradually from his chair. He seemed to grow taller and taller until the Baron almost imagined he had grown into a giant. The moment the tale was finished, the guest breathed out heavily and said a formal goodbye to the gathered company. They stared at him in surprise. The Baron was totally shocked. "What? Going to leave the castle at midnight? Why, a room has been prepared for you, and we expected you to stay the night." The stranger shook his head in a melancholy and mysterious way. "I must sleep in a different place tonight." There was something in this reply, and the tone in which it was said frightened the Baron, but he repeated his head silently, in a very definite way, at every offer. Waving goodbye to everyone, he walked slowly out of the hall. The aunts were alarmed, and the bride hung her head as tears ran down her face. The Baron followed the stranger to the outside court of the castle. When they had reached the faintly lit door, he paused and spoke to the Baron in a hollow tone of voice. "Now that we are alone," he said, "I will tell you why I am going. I have a formal engagement to keep." "Why can't you send someone else?" asked the Baron. "I cannot. I must attend in person. I must go to Würzburg Church." "Very well," said the Baron, with determination. "But not until tomorrow. Tomorrow you can take your bride with you." "No, no," replied the stranger in an even more serious way. "My engagement is with no bride. It is with the grave. The grave expects me. I am a dead man. I have been murdered by robbers. My body lies at Würzburg. At midnight, I am to be buried. The grave is waiting for me. I must keep my appointment." He jumped on his black horse, raced across the castle bridge, and disappeared in the night. The Baron, returning to the hall in absolute confusion, reported on what had happened. 2 ladies collapsed at once. Others felt sick at having eaten with a ghost. Some people suggested he may have been the wild soldier from an old German country tale. Some talked of mountain spirits, of forest animals, and of other ghostly creatures which have always been known to the people of Germany. One of the poor relations suggested that the young soldier was trying to avoid the marriage. This idea made everyone angry, particularly the Baron. How could anyone make such a crazy suggestion about his daughter? The silly relative had to recall his words at once and agree that the young man was indeed a ghost. Whatever doubts had been held, they were completely put to rest the next day. Regular messages arrived, confirming the young count's murder and burial in Würzburg church. The shock at the castle may well be pictured. The Baron shut himself up in his bedroom. The guests, who had come to celebrate with him, could not think of leaving him in his gloom. They wandered about the courts or collected in groups in the halls, shaking their heads at the troubles of such a good man. They sat longer at meals and ate and drank more than ever to keep themselves cheerful. The situation of the abandoned bride was the most upsetting. To have lost a husband before she had even kissed him, and such a handsome one. If a ghost could be so polite and sensitive, what would he have been like as a living man? The sound of her crying filled the castle. On the second night, the bride went to her bedroom accompanied by one of her aunts, who insisted on sleeping in the room with her. The aunts, who was one of the best at telling ghost stories, had just fallen asleep in the middle of the long tale. The bedroom was remote from other rooms in the castle and looked down on a small garden. The niece lay silently watching the rising moon shining on the leaves of an ancient tree. The castle clock had just struck midnight when the soft sound of music floated up from the garden. She stepped out of bed and went quietly to the window. A tall figure stood among the shadows of the trees. As it raised its head, the moon shone a stream of light on the face. Horror! It was the ghostly bridegroom. There was a loud cry from the aunt, who had heard the music and followed her to the window. As the aunt collapsed into her arms, she looked outside again. The ghost had disappeared.